Recently, the clay-style photos in Remini have suddenly become popular. When you open any social app, the feed is inundated with these ugly cute images. However, this feature isn't free on Remini, and generating images takes quite some time. Can we achieve this using ComfyUI? Certainly. Looking at these finished images, not only does the clay effect rival Remini's, but it also maintains consistency in characters, scenes, and compositions. Next, let me guide you through setting up a clay-style transformation workflow, so you can easily enjoy the clay freedom. The custom nodes used in this video include Instant ID, which maintains consistency in characters. You can also use IP adapter Face ID or the newly released PUL ID. For prompt generation, WD-14 is used, but you can use your own keen eye if you prefer. Without further ado, let's begin. Start by loading a default text-to-image workflow, selecting the checkpoint Disneurial cartoon mix. This model produces a decent clay effect. If you prefer not to download it, you can use mainstream checkpoint like Juggernaut XL, but the effect might be slightly inferior. Then, add a load LoRa node. Complete the connections on both ends. And select the Claymate LoRa. In my experience, this LoRa provides the best clay effect. You can also use other clay LoRas in combination, such as Dr. Diffusion's Claymation-style LoRa, clay animation, etc. Remember to prioritize one LoRa, its weight can be higher, while the weights of other LoRas used together should be lower than 0.5 to avoid conflicts. Here, I'll show you the effect using just one LoRa, keeping its weight at the default value of 1. Next, add a load image node and select the image you want to transform, perhaps a tourist photo. Add an image scale to total pixels node. Choose the Lanzo's algorithm for scaling, and keep megapixels at the default value of 1. This ensures the image is resized to the optimal size for SDXL while maintaining aspect ratio, typically 1 million pixels. Then, add a VAE encode connected to K-sampler, and remove any redundant nodes. I prefer extracting prompts from the original image. Add a WD-14 tagger node, and select the reverse inference model. Add realistic, photorealistic to the exclude underscore tags, because these often conflict with the non-realistic nature of the clay effect. Add a string function to append the trigger words of LoRa to the inferred hints. Specifically, convert text underscore A to input, receive the output of WD-14. Write claymation in text underscore B as the trigger word for LoRa, and include trigger words for any other LoRas. I like to write quality-related hint words in text underscore C. The output of this node is the final processed positive prompts, which we convert to input and connect. Then, write some classic negative prompts. Now, modify the parameters in the sampler. Change the iteration steps to 30, reduce CFG to 7, and set the sampling method as dpmpp_2m with chars. The denoise for image-to-image processing cannot be 1, I set it to 0.65. Click Run. Accelerate processing. And examine the results. Compare it with the original image to see the effects. With the effect applied, the image is full of clay, with characters, clothing, and background all clayified. However, differences in other areas are still very noticeable, such as the posture of characters. To address this, add a depth control net to constrain it. Add an apply control net node. Connect both ends to the positive and negative prompts. Add a load control net model node. And select SDXL's depth model. You can also use canny, line art, etc., but I find depth to be the most suitable. Add a depth pre-processing node and set it to 1024. Complete the connections. The weight of ControlNet doesn't need to be too high, 0.8 is sufficient to give AI room to work. Click Run, accelerate processing. And check the results. It's evident that the composition of this iteration is close to the original image, with characters' postures and backgrounds aligning more closely. In addition to Clay LoRa, Disney LoRa produces similar effects. Let's switch to it and see. Simply change the loaded LoRa node to Disney Studios_style. Update the trigger words accordingly. Click Run, and accelerate processing. Zoom in to see the results: classic Disney-style large eyes, slightly wrinkled brows, and wavy long hair, making the characters more refined. LoRa for Shaun the Sheep works too. Repeat the same steps for a similar style to Disney, with large eyes, smooth skin, and a cartoonish feel. However, since our focus is on the clay feel, let's revert to the original LoRa. For a stronger effect, let's stack another clay LoRa with a weight of 0.4. Complete the connections. And don't forget to include the trigger words for both LoRa's. Click Run, accelerate processing, and observe the results. The effect is decent, but the characters in the generated image don't quite resemble the original. This is because the image processing lacks a reference. We can use solutions like Instant ID, IP Adapter Face ID, or the newly released PUL ID for character consistency. This time, I'll use the native version of Instant ID from ComfyUI, which differs from the diffuser-based one demonstrated earlier by Zozozo. Add an Apply Instant ID node. Load an Instant ID model node. Select CUDA if using GPU. And connect the control_net to a model node. Connect the image to the left port and the model to the LoRa node above. Connect the positive and negative prompts on the left to the corresponding ones in the workflow, and the right port to ControlNet. Add a Rescale CFG node. Connecting the left to Instant ID and the right to the sampler. Since Instant ID is based on IP adapter, I prefer to balance the CFG strength. Click Run, accelerate processing. And check the results. While the overall clay feel of the image isn't as strong as before, the facial features of the characters are closer to the original. Let's try this workflow with another image. I'll choose this one. Accelerate processing to get the result. Similarly, we get a clayified tourist photo with good results. In summary, to achieve a clay effect, it's best to use image-to-image processing, add LoRa for clay style. And for SDXL, I recommend Claymate. For SD 1.5, clay style is the best option. Then, select a character consistency solution. Personally, I prefer Instant ID. If you want finer control, include ControlNet depth, pose, etc., but they may weaken the clay feel, so adjust the weights based on the image results. I've organized this workflow and will share it with you. Interested parties can download it from the link in the description. Now, let me demonstrate how to use it. Drag the downloaded workflow into ComfyUI. If any nodes are missing, install them manually or through the manager. Place the corresponding models for Checkpoint, LoRa, ControlNet, and Instant ID in their respective folders. Then, upload the image you want to convert. Here, I used a handsome photo of Wu Yanzu. Without making any adjustments, simply click Run. And effortlessly obtain a clay version of Wu Yanzu. If you upload an image without a face, like scenery or flowers, as I'm doing now, clicking Run will result in an error. In such cases, you need to disable Instant ID. How? It's simple. Look at the left side of the workflow and set Instant ID is enabled to false and enable Instant ID to no. Click Run again, and everything should work fine. As for why we need these two similar options, it's because the Instant ID custom node has a bug that disrupts hint generation when bypassed. If you want to re-enable Instant ID later, just remember to revert both options. That's it for today's video. If you have any questions about using the workflow or how to switch to IP adapter Face ID or PUL ID, feel free to leave a comment or message me. See you next time.